So thank you guys for letting me have that break. We all know I'm an emotional creature, especially when we're talking about mothers and our children, meaning our boys and our girls. People have to remember that while we are women, we are often tasked with raising daughters and a man child. So we need to make sure that people understand that about us as Black mothers, especially when 70% of most households are headed by a single Black mother. And that's no dig on our fathers, because we love our men in our community. We love them. Good or bad, we love them. So I wanted to stay on the, talking about the addiction. Sharon, bravo. I know your path. I know your struggle. Kim, if you can talk a little bit, because I'll admit, Kim, I did not know
I
you
know.
were addicted to drugs. I did not know.
A lot of people did not know and do not know. This is the first time I've ever spoken publicly today. And other than with my children. But for me, I'll say I have to go back to my childhood sweetheart, which was in 1977. I was 15 and was in a very strong relationship with my childhood sweetheart. And I gave him a son at the age of 16. But at the age of 17, I started experiencing domestic violence. Something that I wasn't accustomed to out of the blue. I became a victim of domestic violence with my live-in boyfriend, whom happened to be my son's father. I endured that for 2 years. And I mean, it was very egregious and very violent. Um, and my son was oftentimes present during that abuse. And unfortunately, at the age of 19, I ended that abuse because I took his life. Um, and the following year, I met my first husband, whom promised to never take me back down that path again because he understood what I had been through. But it wasn't long before I also became his victim of that same abuse. But it was times 10. It was far more violent. And that was in 1982. So I dealt with that for the next 4 years. Why I didn't get out, knowing what I had been through previously, I don't know. I just didn't want to make that decision again. And I just thought if I just hung in there and did it right, changed, did things better, it would change, it would go away. However, it never did. I don't care what I did right or wrong. So he was 11 years my senior and had lived a lifestyle of pimping and using, which was unfamiliar to me. I knew he was a user when I was pregnant with our son in 1985. I knew, but it didn't resonate with me so much up until when I was pregnant in 1985 with my son, Chris. And it wasn't until I gave birth to my son. I gave birth to my son in July of 86. And I ultimately, a month after my son was born, was using crack cocaine because, number one, I found out that it numbs your pain. I chose to indulge with him because I thought it would distract him from beating me. It did not. Then it became a thing to where I dove in deeper into it because I had so much pain and trauma and anger and bitterness in me that I found out that that drug was my go-to to escape. I had boys. My oldest son had witnessed the brutal beatings that I endured. Then he witnessed the drug use, and then he became pretty much the head of the household because I checked out. I checked out, and I would go days without even looking up. Yes, I spent my money, I spent every dime. So then that led me into a life of crime because I had to replace that money to feed my kids. And that was what my life was from 1986 until 1996. And I witnessed my kids. I saw the fear in their eyes. I didn't know, but they thought every time I left out that door, I wasn't coming back. And I learned this, in our conversations with them. And Lisa, you don't know this, but my brother was a Minneapolis cop. He was a South Side precinct. And we were Southsiders at the time. And I didn't care. I didn't even care that my brother was a Minneapolis police officer. I was out there bad. And I did what I needed to do as far as the more money that I brought into the house was meant the more drugs. And and that's what kept my ex-husband subdued. As long as I was bringing home money and supplying what we needed to purchase the drugs with, that was one less beating I had to worry about, So I was caught between a rock and a hard place, either get beat down or get high. And I couldn't escape either one at the end of the day. But in 1996, I met my second husband. I finally got away from my first husband. I finally got away from him in 1991. And I stayed single and met my second husband. Although those years that I was single, I still was using. I was addicted, and we went from pillar to post, house to house. And I had to look in my children's eyes almost on a daily basis because I got high on a daily basis. And it wasn't until, my oldest son, who I did the most damage to, he's 42 now. He was like 15. And he was like, I can't do it anymore, Mom. And he walked out the door. And I remember the rest of the kids was just standing there looking at me like, what are we going to do now? He's gone, and can't depend on her. That was their expression. And I just finally decided, I didn't do treatment or anything. I met my second husband, whom was very inspirational. And I'm going to put it out there, very instrumental in my sobriety, because I was given a either or, and I looked at my children, and my daughter was 5, I believe, 5 or 6 at the time. And I'm like, I have to really be an example to her. So my children was my turning point. I couldn't stand to see that look in their eyes. I couldn't continue to see that they were getting older and they were being more expressive as they got older. So 1996 was, I wanted a change, and I wanted to be a mother to my kids, and I wanted to have the all-American dream. I wanted that life, that family unit, something that I hadn't provided for them for 10 years. It took 10 years away from my kids that I can never give back. And I have seen the damage that I've caused today in my children that witnessed that. It didn't stop with me getting sober. It still has a profound, long-lasting effect on my children to this day. My son is an alcoholic. And we talk 2 or 3 times a week. We sit down and we kumbaya about our path. He grew up with me. I was 16. I mean, I'm in my 50s. He's in his 40s now. So I'm trying to keep my son alive now. I'm trying my best to keep my son alive because he is messed up. And I did that. And I have to take responsibility. I believe in accountability with myself and with our children. So I'm there. I'm there for him, and I'll be there for him through it all. And I mean, until we get it right, because I take responsibility for that. And yes, I wanted to piggyback on what Donna was saying earlier. There comes a time when, you have to be your brother's keeper, your sister's keeper, and that is what I'm pretty much focused on now, is just reaching back, and not with just my kids, but with, community.
I think that's why a lot of times we really, when we talk, we say bringing back the village, and we mean that. Because even when I listened to each one of you talk, I was blessed to never try anything. And my brother always say to me, my brother's Al Flowers, everybody know he get on everybody's nerves. But my brother would say, how did you escape it all? You didn't smoke cigarettes, you didn't smoke weed, you didn't drink, you didn't get high. How did you escape it all? And I always say this, I remember what I saw. My mom was a drinker when we were growing up. I'm so proud of my mom. I say this I'm so proud of my mom. She raised independent kids. We lived in the projects of Chicago. We lived in the poorest of poorest places in Chicago. And my siblings did not get addicted to anything until we moved here.
Mm.
And which is so weird because my mom moved us here for a better life. And when we came here, you guys know this, we North Siders, whoop, whoop, North High, but we are North Siders. North Minneapolis was clean. You could be outside. Y'all know we sat on the porches all night long. All of that started to change about 80, about 81 when Roy Land was killed. But we remember we was at the disco track. But we could enjoy life in North Minneapolis. And you can still enjoy life there, but and I'm skipping into this lawlessness that we're seeing in our community. And we see it a lot as a mother's love because we respond to those scenes. We follow up with those families. We see their pain and their hurt. We see that up front. And I tell people this, I was talking to a mother and she was the first mother to tell me, but she hasn't been the last. And I'll never forget her telling me in the store, we're just waiting on our phone call. Sharon, you have to mute. We're just waiting for our phone call. And I asked her, what do you mean you're waiting on your phone call? She said, we're waiting on a call from either the medical examiner saying our children are dead, or the police saying our children are in jail. I'll never forget how that made me feel like somebody grabbed my heart in my chest and just squeezed it. I thought in my mind, that's what we waiting on. I'm waiting on us to step up and say, no more. I'm waiting on us to say that every life matters, every life, but every Black life matters, not just the ones taken by the police. And I always tell my white friends on Facebook, my white friends in the world, y'all know my mom raised us, Sharon, to judge no one. She raised us to not put people under an umbrella because you belong to this group or that group. She raised us to judge people individually. That's why when I talk about my mother, I'm very proud of the things that she instilled in us. But she is the reason I never drank alcohol. But when my mom became a sober mom, that's all I can remember. I don't look back. There's a lot of kids who do. And I understand that because sometimes that trauma is so great to you that you can't move past it. But I don't judge my mother by any mistakes that she made. She raised 6 children. She gave birth to 7, raised 6 children by herself. Now imagine all them personalities by herself. But she instilled something in us. And a big part of what she instilled was fear. There was consequences for your actions when it came to Mary Flowers. There was consequences. And that's a lot of what we don't see now. You guys know we've been in homes where kids are running the household like Kim just talked about, where kids are cussing their parents out. Y'all know this. I don't have any shame in telling our real truth. I think the shame in it is not telling the real truth, because how can you help anybody if you can't tell the real truth? So I always tell Black people, and I tell white people this: be mad at me if you want to, but the truth will still remain the truth. When I see white people, and I say this to my white friends out there, when I see you doing this, when I see you saying Black Lives Matter, I'll believe you when all Black lives matter to you, not just the ones that the police take. There are children in our community, as we all know, who are traumatized on the daily, and that's not at the hands of the police. But we don't see you. We have our core group of white supporters, and we thank you. But for the number of people that I see in a protest line saying Black Lives Matter, my question to them is always the same. Do they? Do they? Because I have not seen that in your actions. So I wanted to talk a little bit quickly about this big initiative we did. I love these women so much. I wish somebody could understand how much I love these women. I hate that Nona's not in here. Nona Champion is our other OG, original grandmother. So she couldn't zoom in because she's just as horrible as me with technology. But I want to talk, before we have to end our time, about the big initiative we did. We started with COVID, collecting things to make sure that people who were in the midst of George Floyd were put out of their businesses, put out of their jobs. We said that we were going to make sure everybody had a meal. And we thank Reverend Jerry McAfee of New Salem and Pastor Jeff of Gethsemane. We thank them, because without them, we didn't know a lot about food service or food safety. We didn't know that. They taught us that. And we thank them for that. But I want to talk about the Christmas initiative. And let me just make sure everybody know, I suggested this on Facebook without ever talking to the team. So because it just, I'm a kid. I'm a big kid. Christmas is always my favorite. And so I put this out on Facebook like, I want to do Secret Santa and adopt a family. And what did the community do? We gonna do it with you. And I was like, oh, I gotta call the team. Hello, team, I did it again. But it was the biggest joy, the greatest success for us and for the families that we have been serving for the last 3 years, to be able to adopt them out to people in their very own community, or become secret Santas to them from people in their very own community. So before I let you guys talk about it, we got like 10 minutes. So everybody take 2 minutes and just tell what you felt like doing that initiative. Kim, we'll start with you.
How come I'm always last? Oh.
I can't begin to tell you what it did for me, what it did to me. I mean, I had so many people that I was able to just observe the impact of the gift of giving does. It was such an enlightening spiritual moment each time I went to a door. It was even the camaraderie. Alexa, stop. I'm sorry. Even what it did with us, for us as a team, the unity that we had.
I'm reminding you, take the dog out.
I'm sorry, y'all. It was just phenomenal. And I have to say this to Miss Donna, who adopted Anastasia Carpenter and Chris. They had no Christmas at all, and you made their Christmas phenomenal, to the point to where I broke down. I'm sorry. It touched me so much because they didn't have a Christmas at all. And I didn't know that until they got your Christmas. And that's my grandson. That is my son's son. They had no Christmas at all. And all the people that we touched moved me. It just moved me so profoundly. And I just want to say that it was the best thing that I could have been a part of. I love being a part of the COVID initiative and everything else. But what we did for these families was phenomenal. Hats off to you, Lisa, for your vision. I tell you that all the time. You know, what you do is not unnoticed. I love you for your perseverance. I love you for staying the course. You know, if not for you, you know, that's all I can say. And Donna, to you, you know, yes. So that's what it did for me. I mean, I mean, honest to God, this was one Christmas I didn't care if I had nothing to open. And I mean, it was all about just putting smiles on people's faces. And I mean, this time of year is usually the worst time of year. I'm gonna be very, very honest. It's a hard time of year for me because I don't have my son. I don't have my granddaughter. My mother, she left me, and her birthday's the day after Christmas. This is the worst time of year. But I was able to get through it because I had a task, and it was phenomenal. Thank you. And I know I went over 2 minutes, but I had.
Don't do it again. Sharon, your turn.
Yeah, I think I'm here. Don't forget, I'm still a big sister. Anyway, you know, this was actually, we've always been a family. Mom raised us to always try to help somebody else, to reach back and help somebody else. And I sat back and I thought about that. That's what we've been doing all our life, is we've been always a part of a village, even growing up in Chicago. And you went around and you helped the community, you helped people out. during COVID, there were so many people that needed so much help that nobody paid attention to them until Mother's Love. And it was like taking the Christmas toys, even in the blizzard, when the blizzard started, taking toys, and I'm sitting there trying to take a picture, and it's snowing, and I'm cold, and it's like and to watch the people crying over little things. We started out with, supposedly, according to you, it was going to be 25, and we ended up with well over 50, 60 families that we were taking stuff to. And I said, I'm not going to be running up until Christmas Eve like I always do. And we did, you know, we still did it. And it's like, and it just felt good to be able to give somebody something. And it's like, we're all criers. And when they start crying, we're crying,
That's that
and
mother in us. Cheryl,
oh,
I gotta cut Sharon off because Sharon ain't gonna give up her 2 minutes.
Well, I just want,
we can talk about this.
This the only time you can cut your big sister out is when you hit mute on them. Cheryl?
I just wanted to say that it didn't surprise me, Lisa, that you came up with that, because you always made sure we all had gifts. You know what I'm saying? We all lived in that one house over south. It was a bunch of us. You always made sure we had gifts. So I'm gonna tell you, I just want to say my part, it was enjoyable for me. And one part was a young man, the little boy named Trayvon, and I want to follow up on him and find out what he had in that big box, because the smile on his face just made my whole day. And I loved that part. And I think that was just awesome what we all did together as a team. And you rock, Lee.
Donna?
Usually this year it was different. It felt, this year, I'm gonna go back a little bit. This year, starting at this summer doing the feeding program, for the first time in my life, I actually felt that I was living out the purpose that God intended for me. I literally, for the first time in my life, whether it was from the senior feeding program to the summer feeding program, and it didn't stop until right before my wedding. So I was trying to do a wedding and plan the wedding and figure out what to wear and get my dress fitted and everything else while we're doing the feeding program, to Christmas. But to be able to bring joy to those families. I will never forget Kalila's family. Am I saying it right? When Kim sat on that ground and held that cold ground and held that baby in her arms until he stopped crying, it meant everything. Kim, it was an honor to do for your grandson. I didn't even know it was your grandson until I think right before Christmas Eve. But oh my God, just the joy that we had the opportunity to bring to others, the smiles, the big surprise look on their face when we showed up with the Marines and the bikes and the police department and everybody at their house, and they kept getting more and more and more. It felt like we were living out the purpose in which God gave us. And that can't replace anything. It was powerful. Even for what we've done for each other, lifting each other up during the hard times. We knew Kim was having problems handling, and we were right there with Kim, helping her get through it. With our families, when we got frustrated because we couldn't find the right gift to give to the families. And Sharon went out to the store and bought a bunch of art kits because all the kids wanted art kits for Christmas. And Cheryl, with her wrapping surprise, she'd be wrapping presents and be talking and giggling and laughing. And it was just the joy of us being a team of women working together for the common good. And it's such a joy to bring that much peace and tranquility to the families we serve. Good Lord knows the 59 families we serve deserve every bit of what they got and more for the hell they've been through this year.
This was a hard year for everybody. It was. It was a hard year for everybody. I want to send my love out to those families who were displaced when the city was set on fire. I want to send my love out to George Floyd and his family, but I want to send my love out also to all the African-American people and every other person who lost their life in the city of Minneapolis, because that's predominantly where we do our work. So I want to make sure that all those families know that a mother's love is just that, a mother's love. We don't differentiate on anybody's pain and trauma because we understand that trauma has no race connected to it. Pain has no race connected to it. Drug addiction has no race connected to it. It doesn't belong to anybody, but it affects and destroys the lives of everybody. But I want to say these quick thank yous. I want to thank the
Lisa?
Marines because the
Lisa, okay.
Marines came through for us this year. I want to thank Buzzy Bond. That's my white mother in the community. That's the leader in the community. John Richards, that's our everything. Without John Richards, there was no a mother's love. He went out, boots on the ground in his very own community to make sure that a mother's love had everything we need to serve the people. He trained us in addiction, how to give the injections if somebody was in an overdose state. He took his time and came and trained us and the youth workers we had. I do want to thank them. I want to thank Alicia Smith over in the Corcoran neighborhood. Without her, we had no place to put our feet. We had no desk to sit under. And she gave us a small space in the Corcoran neighborhood to work from. I want to thank Kathy Spann for being our mentor, Sandra Samuels for being our mentor, Sergeant Dubuque in the Minneapolis Police Department, that's my boo. I want to thank Sergeant Jason Anderson. He makes it do what it do.
Yes, he does.
He makes it do what it do.
What it do?
And I want to thank Sergeant Pofis from the 4th Precinct. And above all, I want to thank Deputy Chief Art Knight. Yes, that's what I called him, Deputy Chief Art Knight. Because of mother's love, the door was open to us by Deputy Chief Art Knight and Chief Arredondo. So I want to say thank you. When I started this, I thanked the county, the city, the Office of Violence Prevention, the Minneapolis Foundation, and I can't thank our community enough. But beyond all of that, I want to thank a mother's love. We started with a vision, with Black women sitting around a table, Black mothers sitting around a table 6 years ago. And look at us now. We're doing exactly what God intended for us to do. Even when I was tired and saying, I can't do it anymore. Even when I didn't have any money to pay the team. What did y'all say, Donna? Don't make no difference. We'll see you tomorrow.
Yep.
That's what this team says. And I'm at home crying. I don't have any money to give y'all. I don't have anything. And this team said, we'll see you tomorrow. I appreciate that. I appreciate that.
So Lisa, you talked about our office space over in South, but we have a big initiative you want to announce. What is it?
Oh, I would have forgot. So let me say this to you guys, America, but especially Minnesota. So we're going to launch a GoFundMe. Right now, Reverend Jerry McAfee has allowed us to utilize a house in North Minneapolis, which for me is home.
Yes.
So what we found is we wanted to create an environment for mothers. In order for us to change the narrative, we wanted to create an environment for mothers that was like home, that wasn't cold and sterile and everybody looking and watching. We want to be able to sit down in the living room and have circle time, sit at the table, have a meal and some conversation, talk about what's going on with our kids. How can we help? Who do we need to bring in? Because our whole goal in life is to save our children.
Yes.
That's our goal. We are bringing the village back. When I was a cop, I'll tell y'all this quickly, and any cop will tell you this. Whenever we were out on a scene and it was getting chaotic, we always looked for the elder in that scene. And it was always a grandmother or a grandfather, but predominantly a grandmother. And that is who we would focus on to help us gain control of a situation. So that's what we want to bring back, not just us as the OGs, original grandmas. I really like saying that. I'm just gonna tell y'all that. But the young women and the young men who are part of our group. We're no longer just mothers. We're fathers too. So I'm going to do a GoFundMe, and I'm going to ask you guys if I have to beg. I'm not above that. We all know. We really want to use this house in North Minneapolis as our new foundation to change the narrative for mothers, our daughters, and our man children. So we're going to be asking you to support us on that initiative, donate, get donors if you can. We really want to buy this house. None of us can afford to do it, but we really want to buy this house so that we stay within the community and doing our work within the community. So to this, I say good night. The new year is coming. 2021 will be the year of change, if we have anything to say about it. And we thank you for supporting us, loving on us, and giving us a voice in the community.
And can I say
Happy New Year.
Happy New Year's, and you've helped us find our purpose.
Yes. Lisa, can I read something? I'm gonna change it a little bit to make it fit us.
Yeah, I think you got enough time.
My battery about to die.
For every mountain you brought us over, for every trial you've seen us through, for every blessing you've blessed us to bless others with, we give you praise. For every family member, friend, and foe, we give you praise. For the precious gifts that you bestowed upon us, family, friends, husbands, children, grandchildren, we give you praise. For every tear we shed for the families we serve, for the community we serve, we give you praise. For every smile and sound of laughter, we give you praise. For every day that our heart breaks, or we see or hold somebody with heartbreak, we give you praise. For the roofs over our heads, for the cars we drive, and for the times that you have kept us safe, we give you praise. For the craziness of 2020 and the blessings to come in 2021, we give you praise. From a mother's love to y'all, Happy New Year.
Happy New Year.
Happy New Year. Oh my God, you stole my heart. I want that hanging on the wall when we get this house in North Minneapolis.
Okay.
Let's claim it now.
We're claiming that house.
Happy New Year to everybody. Stay
New
I
Year.
love
safe.
y'all. I love y'all.
Love you.
Good night.
Good night.
Bye-bye.
Good night.